So I'm Susie. I think I've been introduced 3 times now, so you should know who I am. And I just wanted to talk a little bit today about our Bright Futures programme, namely, and that really is about social mobility, bringing individuals through. And I feel very conveniently placed in the schedule today because I think I'm going to touch on quite a lot of the things that were covered, in the first instance of the panel, but also some of the from the slides that we've just heard. So hopefully that's going to fit into place in terms of in practice, putting together a social mobility programme, how you can do it and how we can all do it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Bright Futures programme, a little bit about the learnings and adaptations, because as James said earlier, we don't always get it right, and we've got to be honest and hold our hands up about that. And then creating a curated experience. So I think that was mentioned as well earlier around how to really engage with candidates on a bit more of a one-to-one basis. Attracting Generation Z, like that is quite difficult. So how do we go about that in this market? How do we attract people to a law firm and indicate that we're not that stuffy kind of old law firm that you probably imagine? And then how do we measure the impact? So what is working, what isn't working, and how do we continue to adapt throughout this process? So I wanted to start with a little bit about what's the landscape for these individuals and graduates. 39% of students state that the inability to gain work experience is the single largest barrier to getting a job. So, and I think some of those stats were mirrored in the presentation by prospects earlier. But 70% of internships are unpaid. So we as employers are almost causing some of that barrier by not allowing individuals into work experience because they simply can't afford to live and learn and work. People in Britain's top jobs are 5 times more likely to have attended a private school than the general population. So we are continuing and perpetuating that issue as we go from the internship, the work experience, into the graduate roles. And in 7 leading law firms, employers educated at state schools are 75% more likely to feature as top performers than those educated at independent schools. So why are we causing this problem for ourselves when actually these individuals are people we want to bring innovation, to grow productivity and profits within our business? So a couple of learnings and adaptations. So to introduce the Bright Futures programme, we launched this in 2017, which I admit is before my time at Clyde Co, but it was designed as a week-long work experience and shadowing programme, and it ranged kind of over the course of 8 months plus, really. And you can see on the right-hand side a little bit of the journey that the candidate would go through. It's always been aimed at first-year students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And for us, that's about that journey from first year, second year, third year, because particularly in law, we're recruiting quite far in advance. So it's about engaging individuals that might not have been attracted to our brand earlier. But there was a couple of things that we learnt from this process between 2017 and probably 2020 when I joined the firm. The first thing was that time to offer is pretty long, and actually we're losing candidates during that time. I won't name names, but there's some other law firms that go into LinkedIn and try and steal our candidates. And again, no naming, no names. But if you're offering a candidate from kind of the month 1 and then you're not actually seeing them again till month 9 or 12, inevitably they're going to lose interest. We also wanted to think about how do we close the skills gap, because it's in our best interest to offer these candidates skills. If they then choose not to join us, you know what? That's okay. From a CSR perspective, we've delivered something good to these individuals. And also, how do we set these students up for success? Because putting them into the business year 1 and going, good luck, off you go, and just putting them in the business in terms of in front of partners, doing work, they're not necessarily going to be set up for success. So is that the right thing for us to do? And also differentiating from our vacation scheme as well. So do we really want to bring them in year 1 and then bring them in year 2 and roll them into the same programme again? What is that delivering for them as candidates and for their career journey and their development? So we transformed the programme in 2022 to a week-long skills programme, still aimed at the same group of students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And we also use the rare contextualised data, which some of you will be familiar with, but we wanted to look for a couple of these eligibilities to make sure that we were targeting the right candidates and bring those people who are underrepresented in our business in. And when we were thinking about the design of the Bright Future programme, kind of think, oh, is it that the graduates actually want? So I'm not kind of like blindly putting together a programme. So we wanted to have a look at some of the data. And 59% of candidates would like to see more coaching during an application process. And I think that fits really nicely into that removing the systemic barriers and actually providing some of that equity to these groups. And it's also about that personal touch. If somebody's taken the time to pick up the phone one-to-one to a candidate, that is an incredible USP. 41% of students are interested in meeting diverse groups of people. I think that's pretty basic, right? And it's about that values and culture piece, but not just here on our website. We say we've got values and culture, but actually meeting people like me that I can see that have developed themselves in the business. 46% prefer in-person events. So trying to move probably into that hybrid space, but actually starting to move back more into that face-to-face environment. And then 49% want to hear from other apprentices or graduates about what the role is like, because again, it's about that case studies and bringing it to life for them. So we took all of that into consideration to build a program that was going to deliver back to the students, that was going to give them skills, give them more coaching, so that when they join us for their vacation scheme, they feel ready for the challenge. So we wanted to provide insights into our core industry sectors. Typically, our firm focuses on insurance, marine, aviation. It's quite exciting. We do some really exciting things. So how do we get those insights into this program? How do we develop the soft skills, and what are they in terms of the world of work? You know, commercial awareness is a really big one, something that we concentrated on. And then we also wanted to deliver an assessment centre boot camp. So rather than candidates coming for a work experience or shadowing program, leaving, not knowing whether they were then getting a vacation scheme or an internship program, having to come back for an assessment didn't feel right to us. So on day 4, we delivered this assessment centre boot camp, where we actually gave them some of the skills and some of the understanding to set them up for success. And then on day 5, we actually assessed them so that they went away from that program knowing that in their second year, they had a place on a vacation scheme, which is much more impactful for them as individuals. And we also wanted to double the number of opportunities, which seems like an easy thing to do, but actually that's going to be a bit of a challenge for us, and we're still in the process. So we've doubled the program from 10 candidates to 20, and I'll talk you through why when we look at some of the results. So some of the key considerations and the practicalities when I go to my stakeholders to say, yeah, by the way, I want 20 now. What they want to know is, okay, how much is this going to cost? Because actually, you know, we are paying these individuals salaries. As I say, we want to remove some of those barriers. So we're paying these individuals salaries, but we're also paying for their travel and their accommodation. Although some of these individuals are going to be local to London, where this program is hosted, we were conscious that we didn't want to price out individuals coming from regional locations. So to host 20 students in the summer, £170 a night at a hotel adds up quite quickly. We also guarantee that those individuals, when they're offered a place on our vacation scheme, we also pay for their accommodation across that 2 weeks. Again, removing that barrier for those individuals who probably that salary might just about cover the accommodation. You know, is that fair? Is that right? Let's remove some of those barriers. But it's certainly a key consideration for us, particularly going from 10 to 20. The location of work experience typically is London-centric. So if you're not offering that salary and that travel, how are those individuals going to, you know, make that happen for themselves? Because frankly, you know, you're putting in place a barrier for them. So in the future, one of the considerations is, how do we maybe have a hub in Manchester? Could we have something up in Scotland to try and improve our social mobility there? And then seeking continuous feedback as well is super important, because as I said, we don't always get it right. Some things we might do really well at, and we should give ourselves a pat on the back. And some things we should actually say, oh, we didn't quite get that right. So how are we going to improve next time? The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is creating a curated experience. And again, I think we've covered this a little bit as we've gone through the morning. But this is our process. And I wanted to touch on a couple of things in a bit more detail. So the first thing the candidates do is a really simple online application form. We've removed all those motivations and why do you want to work for us, because simply not relevant. And actually, individuals require coaching sometimes to get that right. So let's remove that barrier. We then do an online workshop for these individuals to give them that equity, to provide them that experience and that understanding of what they're going to experience in the next stage. And then they do our video assessment, which is a Capfinity digital simulation. And again, it really takes the candidates on an immersive journey. What am I going to do as a trainee? what will I do at Clyde Co? What do you stand for and what are your values? And it also encompasses a situational assessment as well. So you're in this situation, what do you do? So removing some of those neurodiverse barriers as well, which we've just heard about, which is absolutely excellent. Once the candidates go through that stage, we do some application screening, and then we do our shortlist. And all of that shortlist is going to receive one-to-one coaching. And this is the element as a small team where we thought, how on earth are we going to do this? And so we are working in collaboration with Bright Network to support these candidates and these individuals through this coaching to set them up for success. We don't want to push them into an interview scenario that they've never been in before. We don't want to push them into an interview scenario and then thinking, what on earth is a strength and how do I demonstrate it? So what we want to do is take these individuals in more detail through how do I demonstrate a strength? What is a strength? And how am I going to be authentic in this process so that you understand the real me? And that's what we do as part of that coaching. The candidates then go on to their strengths-based interview, which is via Teams. They then receive an outcome and feedback. They'll join us in July for the Bright Futures programme, and then it's about that continuous engagement piece, because we don't just go, hi, nice to meet you, come on a vacation scheme, we'll see you in a year. So what we wanted to do was provide them a mentor in the business. Provide them somebody that perhaps looks like them, has a similar experience to them, and actually can engage with them and talk them through some of the issues that they faced throughout their career journey. So from the time they finish their Bright Futures programme in July until they join us on a vacation scheme, they're going to receive that mentoring from that individual, which we think is a significant investment, but an incredibly meaningful and important one. They'll then come back and join us for a vacation scheme where we continue to keep in contact with them, and their mentors will continue to keep in contact with them too. And then they will join us in the next year or 2 years for their training contract. So for us, it's about that continuous journey, particularly in law, when we're engaging with them so early and we're not meeting them again for their, training contract till much later. Moving on to attraction then. How do we engage with these individuals who think, oh, I don't want to work for a stuffy law firm. I don't know if law is right for me. I don't know what I want to do with my career. The first thing we did was work really closely with careers services. We did insight days for career services. We invited them to the office, particularly those in London. And we did events online to really engage with those individuals, educate them on the process and educate them in terms of what the Bright Futures programme is about. We utilised data through a CRM system and engaging with candidates that we'd met at universities or through insight events that we'd done throughout the year. And to put that into perspective, last year we collated about 2,500 candidate data points, and this year it was over 10,000. So we were really able to filter that data down to those candidates that we're trying to attract and sending them out the relevant messaging. We hosted insight events, some online, some in person. We celebrated Diwali, we celebrated Black History Month in person. And that was a really big change for us to bring individuals into the office, get a feel for it. We created organic video content. And I think sometimes we're all guilty of, we'll go on a stock image, find a random picture and put it on. That's great and that's easy for us, but it's not actually being authentic. So what we did was we found some alumni from the Bright Futures programme and we asked them to self-record some videos and we shared that on social media. Some of them had already come through the vacation scheme, some were already on training contracts, and that gave a real life glimpse into what are you going to learn and what are you going to gain from this programme and why should you apply for Clyde Co. And then finally, with all of those things, we utilised some paid targeted social advertising, which was a real first for Clyde Co, I have to say. And something I had to work really hard to explain why that was important for us to get the budget. But actually, it worked really successfully through Meta, through Facebook and Instagram to target individuals at certain universities that we've never targeted before. SOAS, Queen's, all of those universities that perhaps sit slightly outside the Russell Group universities or the Red Brick universities. They're where the candidates we want to engage are, so let's target them using paid social advertising. And this is just a couple of examples of some of the branding that I'm actually very proud of, and I can't tell you how long it took me to try and pause that video where I didn't look like I was sort of in a bit of a funny position, and I don't think I've quite managed it, so I'm just going to move swiftly on from this slide. So measuring impact, because all of this is where it counts, right? Is what impact are we making? Where are we bringing ROI and where are we making an impact to candidates? Because this is what it's all about. In terms of our attraction from 2017, you can see a bit of an incline in terms of our applications. But in 2019 and 2020, like lots of firms, we paused what we were doing given the economy and trying to make this work. When we came back, we did great. 22, we did all right. But 2023, we have nailed it. And I'm really, really proud to say that we doubled or nearly doubled our applications this year. So that paid advertising, the way that we were targeting students, it's worked for us so far. And although these are relatively small numbers in terms of some of your cohorts, for us, it's a really good outcome. And we looked at the diversity data of hires, and from the 2021 cohort where we made 14 offers, but actually then only secured 4 on the vacation scheme. In 2022, we had 10 coming onto the Bright Futures programme, 9 that were offered vacation schemes, and so far, from those that have actually joined their vacation schemes, 2 have been offered training contracts and 5 we're seeing for our spring scheme. So I'm really hoping that we're going to see some results from that. But 69% of those applications were first generation to go to university, and 36% were free school meals, and that increases when we go to our offers. So we've been really pleased to see those numbers. But when we look at 2023, even though we've nearly doubled those applications, we're still seeing those proportions of applications being 62% first generation. And we've actually increased to 45% from free school meals. So proportionately, we're quite proud that although we've doubled those applications, we're still maintaining and increasing some of those numbers. And we are hoping to make 20 offers, which I'm really excited about. And the team will be in the midst of those interviews shortly. But it's going to be really exciting to hopefully come back if I'm invited and tell you how it's gone, essentially. One of the things I just wanted to end on was just some of the feedback, and I touched on what we got right and what we didn't get right, and this is an indication of that. So when the students came to us in July, we surveyed all of them and all of them responded, which frankly was a good start. In terms of the feedback, they said that the most useful session was understanding your strengths and preparing for your vacation scheme. So for us, that's a continuation of our process. But it really enabled them to understand, what am I good at and how do I demonstrate that? What are my development areas and how do I work on them so that when I land in the workplace, I'm going to be a developed individual? The commercial awareness session was second. And on the left-hand side, you can see the increase in confidence after the assessment centre bootcamp. So before their assessment centre bootcamp, we asked them how confident do they feel. 0% felt confident, slightly worrying. 60% felt somewhat confident and 40% felt not confident. But after that assessment centre bootcamp, we asked them again, what about now? And they said that 70% felt confident, 0% not confident, and 30% somewhat confident. So it really demonstrates that adding in those sessions, providing that equality and equity to these individuals really makes a difference in terms of how confident they feel going into those assessments and how they're going to perform therefore on the day. All agreed that the sessions enabled them to make an informed decision on their career, which is what we're doing here, so that's great. But some of them said that they'd like to understand more about the office, see more of the office, and hear more about day-to-day tasks. So that's all really valuable feedback for us to implement into this year's programme to really get them more in depth in terms of the day-to-day and what a trainee does in the role. So we're going to take that forward. Vinny really wanted to be here today, and he's an alumni of our programme, but unfortunately wasn't able to attend due to a last-minute client lunch, which I thought was convenient. But he did provide me with this quote, and he says that the scheme was life-changing for him as it gave him a unique first-hand insight into commercial law and taught me real-life practical skills, which I continue to use and develop to this day in my journey as a junior lawyer. And Vinny is about to qualify with us and has come through that programme right from 2017. So it's amazing to see these people. We utilise them a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's amazing to see these individuals come through the business and really talk about how that experience has shaped their journey. And then I wanted to leave on my final point, which is a One City, Two Worlds report. And it found that 1 in 4 young people from low-income backgrounds believe that people like me do not succeed in life. And I just wanted to leave on a point where, as employers, we have the ability to make an impact by offering these students opportunities to thrive and fighting our stakeholders for paid opportunities, for more opportunities, is so valuable to these young people and will really make a difference in the future. So I hope you're inspired by that. That's the attempt anyway. And thanks for listening to me.